Engage fluo injectors.
Engaging fluo injectors.
Fluo reactors at 80%, sir.
Fluo containment field is destabilizing.
Emergency fluo containment protocols now. All hands brace for impact.
Brace for impact in 3, 2, 1.
Hot diggity damn, we're back with another episode of World 1-1 Podcast, and we're asking the ever-important question, what else can we fuck up today? Real quick tease for the third half of the show, coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about the magic of missable content, and the difference between missable and skippable content. Stick around for that, that's a really fucking cool one. I can't wait for you guys to hear it, and I am super excited to hopefully get to hear some feedback and some thoughts on that conversation when that drops. As always, you can and should gently caress the inner thigh of the subscribe and share buttons until they rapidly build to a climax and just squirt hot, steamy content all over your RSS feeds and your podcatchers. Oh, it's so good, you're going to need to wear protection. Also, link in the show notes. Jump into the Discord. Come join the conversation. Give us your feedback, assuming I haven't completely fucking repulsed you with that. Or, on the other hand, if I've aroused you with that description of subscribe and share, come tell us so that I do more of it. But if you want it to stop, you're going to have to jump into the Discord and tell me this is horrible. Make it stop. Oh my God, please. So, also, before we dive in, shout out to our awesome sponsor, Imaginary Authors. More about them before the break, because they are here helping you up your scent game with fragrances for guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Make sure you check them out. Link in the show notes down below. All the I don't know, rigmarole out of the way.
Choose your fighter.
I am, as always, your host. Joining me this week is my home slice, Wes fucking Evans. What's up, my dude?
Now live in spectacular 2D.
That's right. He turned that slider all the way down on his 3DS, didn't he?
Yeah. Hey, I prefer frame rate. I'm a frame rate guy. What can I say?
Look, I'm just saying, it's okay to leave the slider up so long as you've got a new 3DS with the eye tracking, because God, that made a world of difference.
I will find one of those these days, and whenever I finally realize I need to stop spending my paycheck on stupid stuff.
Like the new 3DS XLs were great. I like the new 3DS XL out of the two, but I mean, if your thing is just the eye tracking, just the new 3DS works just fucking fine. But man, there were some good fixes in there. The eye tracking was one. The NFC reader for the Amiibos was built in. It had the right thumbstick, the ZR and ZL buttons on it. It worked great. And I think one of the biggest things for me is, man, they smoothed out and like better rounded off the corners, so it didn't feel like it was digging into your palms while you were holding it and playing it. It was just so much more comfortable. But that's neither here nor there. So, now that we know who all is here, let's jump to...
Oh my gosh!
Video games.
Wes, what have you been playing? Tell me everything.
I have finished up Case of the Golden Idol with all of the DLC.
Woo.
God, love that game so much. Let's see, what's it called? Is it Rise of the Golden Idol? It's there's a new one where it's like that's announced to have come out sometime this year. It's Rise of the Golden Idol. And so
I love how your keyboard clicking sounds exactly like when you call a customer service line and you get the automated bullshit AI, thing, and you tell it what you want, and they have the fake keyboard clicking to make it sound like something. I'm like, nobody falls for this shit. Your keyboard clicking sounded exactly like that. I may actually need to like clip that out and use that for shit in the future.
You have my permission. Would you like me to just type some random stuff real quick in Notepad so that you can...
Oh,
There you go.
God, it's so perfect. That's the sound of a wonderful mechanical keyboard.
Some nice, cozy keyboard sounds to fall asleep to.
I feel like keyboard ASMR is a thing. And if it's not, it definitely should be. But I have a suspicion it's a thing.
But yeah, so Case of the Golden Idol is the one that's out right now. Rise of the Golden Idol is the sequel that was announced. And so I'm assuming they're going to play very similarly. But yeah, I talked about it last week on Oh My God Video Games, but just in case anyone missed that episode, it's very similar to Obra Dinn, but you're only solving really like one death per scenario. Similarly, you have you find the words somewhere in there, whether it be through dialogue, through newspaper clippings, something along those lines, and you have to piece out what happened. And a lot of times you can figure out certain parts of it pretty easily, but in order to get the full thing, you gotta really, really pay attention. So just yesterday, I was showing it to my friend, not yesterday, day before yesterday, and I got him hooked on by getting him through the first chapter. I say I got him through. The first two I didn't provide any help on. The third one he had to leave at some point soon because it was getting kind of late, so I provided the teensiest, tiniest bit of help. But playthrough, easy recommend. The only people who are going to complain are those who are strict dollar per hour kind of people, because at full price I think it's $18, and it took me, I can't remember how long it took me to beat the main game. Granted, I played it while tired from work most of the time, but I'd say probably somewhere between 6 and 8 hours. But okay. I'll say it's high quality stuff because you're thinking the whole time. At no point in that was I bored. And I'm just going to say I would rather spend $18 for 6 hours that I am fully invested in than $18 for 18 hours that I'm invested in for 1/3 of that time.
Yeah. I feel like we really need to kind of let go of the whole dollar per hour bullshit. It just seems like the dumbest way to go about this in this industry. I'm like, I'm sorry, I will pay top dollar for a 6 to 12 hour game that might only last me a weekend or a week kind of thing, as long as it's really fucking good and I have an experience that sticks with me.
I'll say I don't think it should be fully discarded. Like, I think length should be a factor, but it shouldn't be the factor. You get what I mean? Right? Like,
length
I'm not about
is a factor for me in regards to, is this unnecessarily bloated? Like, that's where length is a factor. Are you wasting my fucking time because you wanted to put 40 hours of gameplay on the back of the box? Because if you're doing that, you can fuck right off. Like, if it's a 40-hour game because it needs to be 40 hours to tell the story or give the experience that is intended from the inception, then yeah, that's fine. That's one thing. But if it's just bloated bullshit, then you're just taking the piss. And so that's kind of where my issue with time comes into play. Additionally, I suppose the time consideration for me is I've got a lot to play. I don't want to be locked into something that's 40 to 60 to 80 hours because I could bang out 3 to 7 other games that are way tighter, get a full experience, and be in and out in that time frame.
I don't fully disagree with that, but also, like, the flip side, hypothetically speaking, if you charged me $70, as is the trend right now, for a game that can be beaten in 2 hours, for example, I'm I'm not going to be a happy boy unless those are like the best 2 hours of my life, which, realistically speaking, I say this as someone who loves video games, it's going to be really hard for a video game to deliver on that, you know?
Now, here's where I'm going to argue with you, and I feel like we're almost getting into deep dive territory, but I really don't care because I'm absolutely invested in this conversation now. But hear me out. There's plenty of games that, you know, are full price, $60-$70 that you can beat in 2 hours. But that doesn't mean you want to beat them in 2 hours. You know, there are some where there is a path where you can roll credits in 2 or 3 hours, but on the other hand, there's plenty more there to do, and if your game lends itself to drawing me into wanting to do that and spending that time, that's a big difference that I don't think is being accounted for here. Okay, so I've got this weird thought in my head, and it needs to come out. But on the subject of dollars per hour entertainment value, I think we might be drawing the wrong comparison here. Because usually when it comes to the dollars per hour entertainment value issue, we're comparing games to the price of a movie ticket, or what did you pay for a season of a TV show? I think the real comparison here is food. So where we have dollars per hour in games, or where we're possibly looking at dollars per hour, and some people do and others don't. And this is where it gets a little muddled, and I think I'm starting to slide to your side a little bit here, and I think it's a mixed bag issue. But rather than comparing the dollars per hour entertainment value to other on-screen entertainment that's passive, I think a better way to look at it is we can look at dollars per hour in entertainment value, but it needs to be compared to food, in the fact that cheap food is cheap. You're getting what you pay for. And I would say that fast food is cheap food, but that's not fucking cheap anymore either. But that's a whole different line of bullshit that we're not talking about here. That's a whole nother podcast that I don't do and doesn't exist. Anyways, but if look at a Michelin star restaurant, you're paying extremely high-end top dollar for what's usually smaller portions. Like if you're fucking hungry, you're not going to be full, but what you're not getting in volume, you should be getting in quality. Like, you should be getting the best ingredients prepared and served by world-class chefs. And that's its own value and experience. And so there's two different things here. You're looking at, when you're talking about dollars per hour entertainment value in games, you need to look at not only the volume, but also the quality. Because, like you said, if I've got an 80, like we're talking, if I've got an 80-hour game and it's $70, the dollars per hour is favorable. But if it's 80 hours of slog and fucking misery, that value doesn't seem so great anymore. And so I feel like the dollars per hour question leaves quality out of the equation. And frankly, I think the quality is the most important part of the equation.
I'm inclined to agree. Kind of like you said, I don't believe volume should be thrown out in its entirety.
No, you're right. After going through this entire mental exercise, I think I agree with you. But there needs to be a way to balance the quantity against quality.
Right. So
And I don't think we've exactly figured out how to measure that yet. Though I will refer back to my long-standing theory of review scores done by dollar value, where that I feel like that kind of wraps both of those together, which again is just another point in favor of the fact we need to throw review score systems out the window and replace them with dollar value, because at that point, then to come to that final conclusion, you're looking at both quantity and quality and balancing that out and saying that this game is a total package between quantity and quality gave me this much money's worth of fun or enjoyment. Look,
overall,
I found another
think
reason that I was right.
overall, I think we're pretty close to, even if we might not be the exact same in agreement here, I think we're not far off from each other on how we feel here.
Yeah, this Venn diagram may not be a perfect circle here, but I think we're getting really close to that territory. Maybe just a little bit of double vision almost.
Speaking of dollar per hour, this week I've also been playing probably the only game I've put in over 1,000 hours into, and that's Slay the Spire.
Yes.
Still love that game to death. It's kind of funny how, like, going back between the different versions I have, because I first played it on Game Pass, bought it on mobile when it came to that, and then when I got my gaming PC, bought it on Steam, because I figured it's going to go off of Game Pass eventually, right? Still hasn't happened, but I'm at different levels of progress in each of them, and so I feel like I'm a whole lot worse than most people who put so many hours into it is, but I want to give some minor explanation in that this is the game that got me back into deck building. So when I first played it, I was pretty darn crap at deck building. Hell, like when I was a kid playing Yu-Gi-Oh, I was pretty crap at deck building. I just picked the cards I thought looked coolest. And now like I remember, like, I would go to the shops, I'd be like, remove cards? Why would I want to remove cards? The whole point of the game is to get cards.
Uh-huh.
But, like,
that
you know...
whole concept of learning how to tune a deck to, what you're worth. Yeah.
Right.
It's a thing. So, I was just watching something this past week about Slay the Spire that was really interesting. They were kind of, talking about how they made a, what was it? Why You Can't Stop Playing Slay the Spire, I think is what it was called on YouTube.
I've been
but it was really fucking it was interesting. A lot of there was a segment, kind of talking about how making a single player deck building game opened up new avenues and options for them that don't exist in traditional card games that involve more than one person, including it changes what you do and don't have to do in terms of balancing card power.
Right.
Because you no longer have to there is no meta in the game because there's only one person playing. It's you. When you add in more than one person, now the meta becomes a thing. And so they cut out the meta, which changes what they do and don't have to do in terms of considerations for for balancing card power. And it was really, I'm like, fuck, that's fucking neat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a neat one to check out. If I can find it again, I'll stick it in the show notes.
I've been playing the game long enough, though, that I do know that they still, even after the game left early access, have absolutely been rebalancing the game. Like, I'm old. Back in my day, well-laid plans cost 0 energy to use. You could just keep a card in your hand for free. You might as well pick it up. You don't know if that one strike might come in handy or not.
Yeah, Slay the Spire is one that I don't think I will ever manage to fully let go of. It's very, very deep in the background for me, but it's one where I sit there and periodically, I kind of want to play that again, but I know if I put that that cartridge into my Switch, I am gonna lose the next 2 to 8 weeks of my fucking life to that again.
To me, it's the perfect comfort game because like I describe myself as a lean forward gamer and that includes whenever I need comfort. But that's not always in the fast reflexes context, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like something needs to be challenged. That can be my fingers or it can be my mind. And if I am exhausted after a long day of work, for me, Slay the Spire, where I can take my time, plan out my hand, no one's trying to rush me, that just feels a whole lot better than the fast pace, try to hurry up, get this done kind of game.
Yeah, I feel like Slay the Spire and Balatro sit very close to each other in that department.
I'm inclined
Because they both also have that thing where, when you combo off the magic of watching the numbers go up, it just hits that lizard brain happy of, ooh, look, numbers go up, big numbers, good. So, but yeah, that's Vampire Survivors is kind of like that too. It's just like, ooh, big numbers, good, and you see them everywhere.
Yeah. Vampire Survivors isn't bad, but at least unless I'm horribly missing something. Granted, I haven't played any of the paid DLC in it, but I know that at least a lot of it, there's not a ton of strategy after you've kind of figured out once you've unlocked everything. But at that point, you've kind of just unlocked God mode, sort of, and I feel like you've earned God mode at that point.
I think there's some stuff in the paid DLC you should check out, because you get into like the mission mode stuff. Ooh. And they start locking you into specific things where it's like, you must do this level and complete this objective with this character, or only these couple of characters as an option, and only these few items available. That, it limits the scope to dial the challenge back in. So I think visiting the paid DLC would probably be a good option for you. There's more to bring you back in that makes it less of at least slightly less of a passively attentive game again for a while you're playing through the mission modes.
Gotcha.
So that's something to check out. I'd be interested to hear your feedback if you do. See if it reignites a little bit of fire, fans blows on the embers a bit.
Let me take a peek here. Uh-oh, I
think that might be some of the secret sauce to a comfort game too, is that it's one that starts as a raging fire when it comes out, hooks you in, you absorb it. But over time, that fire dies down, but it never completely goes out. The embers are eternally there. I think that's part of the magic formula of a comfort game. And that's something that's on our list at some point for a deep dive topic. But I think having that little nugget of idea in my head is going to help in that conversation when we eventually get there one day. Because there's a lot on that list for anybody that's listening that has no idea. There is a running list of topics to dig into. And so when shit like this comes up, if it's not already on the list, it gets added to the list. And if it's on the list, I go, ooh, add that to the conversation. Shit. Mental note, file away. So, anyways. But yeah, anything else you've been spinning?
After this, I'm planning on getting playing Yakuza some since for the Amazon Prime show, but I haven't had time this weekend yet, unfortunately. So, but I know I've got.
Yeah, I saw that trailer out of Comic-Con. I'm like, Wes is gonna flip his shit.
Oh yeah, I did. I'm excited for the show. I describe it as cautiously optimistic. I feel like it's harder to make it into a good show than you'd think, just because of how much the games depend on that the improper balance of the main story is super duper serious and all the side shit just like it's grounded in the sense that it could happen, but also very
They're
clearly
all the least likely scenarios.
right. Like theoretically, if I wanted to, I could go like reenact Ministry of Silly walks down my neighborhood while wearing clown makeup and nothing but my underwear. But why would I wouldn't?
Please make
but
that happen.
No, there are children that live on my street. I'm not doing that.
Look, if the children haven't been introduced to the Ministry of Silly Walks by now, they're long overdue. You now need to make it happen as a matter of public service.
I will think about it.
We need to get a bunch of us together and do it all at once. Group activity!
I remember back when I did marching band, I would always like show that to the freshmen early on and be like, "This is what you guys look like."
Uh-huh. It's not wrong. Not even a little, not wrong. But I'm assuming we've hit the end of your list.
We've hit the end of my list, yes, sir.
Okay, so my list is super short. I've been playing all this week. What the fuck is going on with my life? And the tiny shreds of free time I have gotten, I have actually spent with my nose buried in some comics. But which I don't know. We'll call it a preview of things to come. We are working on a new segment in the background to stick into the break between the first and third half of the show about comics. So if you like comics, there's something to look forward to. And I don't have a definitive rollout date yet, but it's being worked on, and I'm hoping sooner rather than later, because I will be getting some like in-person FaceTime with LeGrew, who is going to be the other half of this segment with me, and hoping that while he's here for a few days, we might actually be able to get in and start banging some of that out, which would be super fucking awesome. So that way we could stick those little mini segments into the breaks in the show, and throw some awesome recommendations your guys' way. Nothing super deep, and we're looking at stuff that you can kind of get in and out of and read in an hour or two. And so whether it be a self-contained story, or like here's the next chunk of a running story that's worth checking out and why, and just a little bit about it. So we're looking forward to getting QuickTime Comics rolling. So that's something to keep an ear out for in the future. Hopefully I'm hoping to get this nailed down and off the ground in the next month, max. Can't promise or guarantee, because there's a few other things going on, but if it goes the way that I think it's going to, which, to be fair, it usually never does. But, if I force reality to bend to my will, Department of Truth style, which that's one we'll be covering, by the way. So, inside of the next month or so from when you hear this, you should start hearing episodes with the new QuickTime Comics segment interjected into the break. So, other than that, yeah, like I said, this whole week has been pure fucking chaos and bullshit, and I have not gotten to sit down with a game to save my life, and it's been absolutely infuriating. But I'm pretty sure some of that's changing over the next week. One of the things that did come up was talking with a buddy, and we were talking about maybe starting to get together, me, him, and Zoe, and hanging out and firing up a new 3-player co-op campaign run through Borderlands, because it's been ages since I've done that, and that sounded like a whole lot of fucking fun. So yeah, that's a thing. And I haven't touched Borderlands in ages, but man, I remember when I first dove into it, I was in it. Oh, that first one, so much. Like the main game and the DLC and just all the goodness. I also remember getting very excited that by the time the DLC was in the works, Rev Anthony from Destructoid way back in the day had left Destructoid to go join Gearbox Studios and actually work on the writing staff for the Borderlands 1 DLC and then rolled into Borderlands 2. And it always made me chuckle because there were lines in there that I knew from having listened. I'm like, Anthony Birch fucking wrote that. Ha ha!
That's funny.
It was just kind of cool to, hear that thing and go, I know exactly where that line came from. So, yeah, that's what I've been not playing all fucking week.
Well, hey, we can't all have busy gaming weeks, right?
No, and it happens, especially when, and I don't know how much people do or don't know this, but, kind of on the back end of this, it's very much a one-man show where, and I will freely admit, the release schedule has kind of been fucking chaos, and a new episode has not actually hit the feed in several weeks, and that's also on me. Like, I've been doing my damnedest to make sure just recordings alone stay on schedule, but having the time to be able to, sit down and edit and bang it up with all the chaos that's been going on has been very fucking difficult, between that and then balancing just a little bit of time to myself for my own fucking sanity. But I've got a whole block of time after we record where I'm going to be basically parked at my desk doing nothing but editing, including like 3 episodes of 1-1, and then doing some editing work for somebody else as well, and getting all that wrapped up and getting our stuff loaded into the feed and scheduled, which means that there's probably going to be a few episodes hitting the feed this week, and this episode should be hitting on Friday. So maybe a Monday, Wednesday, Friday release this week. Like 3 weeks worth of episodes that have just been hanging in the wings fucking waiting. Which, by the way, if you listen to the episode before this, that's where the confusion came in, and that was my own fault, because in the third half tease in the beginning of the show, I absolutely teased the same third half segment as the week prior. Like, whoops. That's me. I have a system, but everything got backed up, and so the system failed me, and that's nobody's fault but my own. And I own that. But yeah, there's a peek behind the fucking curtains. Anyways, all right. Well, let's wrap this up so that we can hit the break. But before we hit the break, we're going to take a minute and tell you about our awesome sponsor, Imaginary Authors, helping you up your scent game with fragrances for guys, gals, and non-binary pals, including one of my all-new summertime favorites, The Language of Glaciers. You should check out. It is it's so good for summertime. It brings like that crisp, clean, cold. I don't know how to explain it other than it is the smell of cold, fresh snow, and it's so good. It balances out just the miserable heat and humidity of the summer experience. It's so good. It's a great attention getter for daytime wear during the summer. It absolutely just grabs you and holds on. But they've got more than just colognes and perfumes. Don't forget, there's the perfumed oils, candles, and bar soaps, all of which are absolutely fantastic. I cannot say enough good things about them, so I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to tell you that what you need to do is you need to jump in and hit the link in the show notes and go check them out. Go build yourself a sample pack, or if you know this is the one for you, take the plunge, get the big bottle, get that 3-pack of soap, and then light up them candles so that the whole house smells amazing. Oh, it's all the good stuff all in one place. Check them out, Imaginary Authors, link in the show notes down below. Click that link, get yourself some good stuff. Helps you, helps us, helps them. Everybody fucking wins. When was the last time you got a win-win-win situation? Because I'm giving it to you right now, so take it. This is my gift to you. Take it. But now that we've covered all that, stay tuned, because we're going to be back after the break having an awesome conversation that you're totally going to want to hear about missable content. I am so excited for this one. It's a great conversation. And that's coming up right after the break. And we're back with the third half of the show. This week we're taking a dive down the warp pipe.
Oh, wow. Love these pipes.
And Kathy and Josh don't entirely know where we're going, so we're running semi-blind again. And last time we did this, it went really well, actually. So I'm hoping for a repeat here, because we've all got the baseline. We've all played Hollow Knight, but we're talking about content that isn't meant to be seen, and should there be more of it? So, Kathy, you've got the puzzled face.
I'm trying to see where we're going with this, and I'm waiting for the moment where it dawns on me, and I go, make my and I understand where we're going with this.
So here's something that's stuck in my head for a long while now. Hollow Knight has this thing where it does the Metroidvania thing where it says, go here and then here to get to here and bounce you, but it's not strictly linear in the way that most Metroidvanias are, because once you hit a point in Hollow Knight, the pathway options open up to where you get this ability. Now, to get to the next thing, you can go one of 3 ways, which means you pick a path and you go, but then there's 2 paths that you never saw, that you never took or experienced. There's entirely skippable boss fights, main line boss fights, not even bonus bosses.
Well, the one you talked about, the Mantis Lords, that's not necessary to do.
No, that's not necessary.
Exactly. It's completely skippable. And so, as a result, if you and Kathy and I all play Hollow Knight, just a straight run through, and we come back and we talk about it, we could each be talking about totally different things that the other never fucking saw. Right. And so, in 2 parts, you end up creating a game that now, as a result of those 2 ingredients, the actual playthrough and then the social interaction after, makes the world bigger than you realized. It makes it feel bigger. Because suddenly, you're like, I thought I experienced the game. And then somebody else is telling you, oh, fuck no, I thought and you realize that you overlay these experiences to get, for the first time, a bigger, more complete view of the game world that you didn't get by simply playing the game. And the magic is in making and including content that you know is going to be missed. And this has been stuck in my head for at least a year. And I keep thinking, I want more of this. But I'm conflicted in the sense that it almost feels awful to ask a developer to make something for me that I may never see.
Sure.
But at the same time, it brings such joy knowing that the world is so much bigger than you ever thought or realized. So I'm going to kick off with a question. Should more developers make content that they know that most people won't see? Kathy, you look like your head was about to explode.
I got that ooh face. Yes,
You got the ooh
it did
face.
happen.
I
I'm trying
told
to hide
you
it. Well, I think it happens in a lot of games, especially if we look in the open world games. There's a lot, like, I'm thinking of two. Legend of Zelda is very hard to explore everything. Now, they purposely, that's why they set up those Korok seeds and those Korok, friends to help you explore, but there's things you're going to miss in that game. So it's very common in open world games. Witcher 3 had an area where you wouldn't find it unless you went way off into a certain area. Then you'd find a picture, a painting of the entire development team. So, it's, those type of things are in there, but those seem more like Easter eggs, whereas like what you're talking about with
little
Hollow...
fringe things.
Right.
These are main, meaty components.
But I was thinking about this, and this explains why when I started playing Hollow Knight and you were trying to help me, because you had already played it, you were having such a hard time because I was ending up in places you didn't go to initially.
Yeah.
Now, they were places you
other
eventually
routes.
got to. You eventually get to them. So I think that was the thing, though, is in Hollow Knight, yeah, there were areas you didn't have to go, but if you are a true explorer, you'll find them eventually.
Right.
But I think that was what the creator wanted, and I think they made it done. I don't know. I don't know if it's possible to ask them to do that, but I think a lot of creators do it. If they love that game so much, they're going to create this open world and make it accessible for everybody. So yes, you may be able to play the game, but then it gives that replayability. When somebody says, "Oh, did you see this area?" and they're like, "No, I didn't," so then they go back and replay, or even on their file, they go explore more, and then they find more of those hidden areas.
Yeah.
So I think it allows, like you said, I don't know if it's asking them. I think developers do it intentionally.
I think Haiku did a little bit of this. Haiku kind of did it to a medium scale. Hollow Knight does it to a large scale. And I will tell you, I have not gotten to play Elden Ring yet. That's one of those that I'm weirdly on the fence about. Like, I want to check it out, but I don't know if it's going to land as a for me kind of game.
Yeah.
But I know from listening to others that Elden Ring has the same thing, where there's whole areas, whole swaths of the game that are completely optional, skippable, but they're big, like, main components at the same time.
Right.
Like, it's main ingredient sized, but it's completely missable.
Horizon Zero Dawn did that.
Yeah.
Okay. I've had a thought here, and I feel like there's a differential here that I think is important.
Okay.
So there's skippable content.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff that's part of the main line that if you know what you're doing, you know how to skip it and just, get through faster. That's borderline, getting into speedrunning territory. You want to see how much stuff you can skip. Skippable content is something where you're intentionally skipping it. Missable content is something where if you're not paying attention or you don't know any better, you're just going to wander right past it and never know that it was there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're distinctly talking about missable content.
Okay.
Another example, because Kathy, you played AM2R.
Yes.
Josh, I don't remember if you did or didn't.
A long time ago, yeah.
Okay. My first run through AM2R, I completely missed an entire fucking beam upgrade.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like,
okay,
I missed the wave. I think it was the wave beam. I missed it altogether.
I could see how you missed that, yeah.
Like, it wasn't necessary. It was off the beaten path, but it's a main ingredient, and I fucking missed it. I got all the way through the game, no fucking wave beat.
Yeah,
And
I can see that.
you know, and it's that same kind of thing where it presents you a main ingredient, but it is totally plausible to waltz right past it and never have even noticed it. So, and I'm curious, aside from Hollow Knight and the what I just kind of put in front of you guys, have you had run-ins of this kind of thing with other games? And
Sure.
You know, if so, what and what? How did that strike you? Because I know how this struck me when this information was put in front of me, and I'm like, there's magic sauce in this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like Rockstar games, and I know you're saying it's skippable content, but it's also missable.
Right.
You know, like Red Dead 2, GTA 5, like those games. There is huge swatches of content, like Witcher 3 is a good one too, because you don't have to play the content. Mm-hmm. And you can skip it, but you're also missing it, because if you do play that content that's there, especially like in Red Dead 2, for example, if you do play that content, it just gives a deeper meaning to the game. And that's the Hollow Knight thing. I think that's the differentiator. Like, if you play the content, does it help the overall game experience? If you doesn't, then that's just skippable content. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you just skip it just because I don't need it. It's literally like a side quest type thing. But I do think that a lot of games, and I think it's a budget thing, obviously, because people are developing, and we know that these game developers are getting crunched, like, for real, in the type of way that's probably not good for human beings, right? So I would see that kind of content is probably going to be less and less frequent in games.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, you talk about, missable content, that can also change your storylines. Like, again, going with the example of Witcher 3, it can change story endings, it can change how it can affect people, whether they live, die, whether they are a part of later cutscenes, things like that. And, it can be part of that story. It's not necessarily a side quest, it's part of the main story, but if you don't go a certain way with it, or if you make a certain choice, you're going to miss a whole thing. So is that what we're kind of talking about, like, Raul, or are we going with more, like, you're talking about just, like, areas? Like, if we're looking at just Hollow Knight, that's whole areas, whereas, like these open world games, it's choices, too. Is that part of it?
Mass Effect does that,
Yeah.
really well. Like, role-playing games seem to do that better, because I think that's the nature of the game. Right? The choices matter. Now, Hollow Knight would not be a role-playing game, but it did it really well, where you could literally skip entire sections of that game and miss it. Yeah. And you could play the game and you'd be fine.
And you could beat it.
And yeah, exactly. But you might not have that deep understanding of what that game really is about.
Yeah.
So it is skippable content and missable. Both are this kind of a flip of the two coins, I think. But if you play that content, you have a deeper understanding of the game world that the developer wants you to have. I do appreciate that the developer isn't requiring you to play it, though. Like, especially at this point in my life, an adult with many things pulling at me all the time, that I do agree that I like that, because sometimes when you put in like AC Valhalla, for example, and you look at all the stuff to do, you're like, I don't have 200 hours. Mm-hmm. This will take me literally 2 years to beat. And that's part of the reason I tapped out of that game, for example, because I'm just like, I can't do this. And I'm sure a lot of that was skippable and missable, but I just didn't, because the map didn't drive me there, right?
You know what part of it I think is? I think you just hit on something.
Yeah.
But keep going. I needed to make a mental note to circle back.
Yes, because that's what I'm kind of getting at. Like, if the game is driving you towards like the golden path, and you decide to go off on your own. I did it with Breath of the Wild. Like literally the first day I had Breath of the Wild, I played for 12 hours, and I remember because I went to GameStop. It was during the morning on Sunday because they always launch shit on Sunday, Nintendo. So I get it. I'm playing it, and my wife, I just remember her knocking on the door, and it was like 6:30 at night already, and she's like, "Are you going to come out and eat?" And I was just running around. But I was having a blast, and part of the reason I have never actually finished Breath of the Wild yet. And part of the reason is because I'm still not done with the open world. Like I'm still messing around in it.
Yeah.
And I think it did it well, but go ahead, Ro.
So you hit on something where you've got, games like Assassin's Creed and GTA where you open the map and it shows you all these markers and all this shit to do versus like Breath of the Wild or almost any Metroidvania where it'll show you the map, but it's not going to tell you where anything is,
and you don't know
it
the
leaves
scale.
you the joy of right, because
Breath of
you
the
don't
Wild
know
was-
how much is or isn't there.
In Breath of the Wild, what I thought was unique was you had your own markers to place. It wasn't what the game developer said. It was what you wanted to look at. I used to place markers, be like, I'm going to get here eventually.
Yeah. The difference is the game devs saying, these are your points of interest, versus you getting to open the map and go, that looks fucking neat. That's got my attention. Let's go there.
Yeah, a really good friend of mine said something about Breath of the Wild one time. It really made me think. He's like, it's a game that says yes. Like, do you want to go over here? Yes. Do you want to go over there? Yes. Can I do this with this crafting item? For sure. It was just like letting you do whatever you wanted.
Breath of the Wild does the Half-Life trick.
It does,
where instead of holding your head and pointing you to stare at something, and for those listening to the audio version, I am gesticulating fucking furiously. This is one of the few times where I will say the video is worth, but
you're that meme. You're the meme of the guy with,
But Half-Life never holds your head. It never takes control away from you. Instead, it just makes sure that there's something in your eye line that is eye-catching enough to make you want to turn to look at it. And Breath of the Wild does the same thing with the map. And it's the difference between organic versus manufactured.
Yes.
And so, putting the dev putting all those markers all over the map, that's manufactured, versus just putting something interesting looking in the distance that makes you want to go there is the organic version. And the organic version, I think, is what really leads to missable content, because you can put lots of other stuff there, but if you're mentally dialed in on that one thing off in the distance that caught your eye, and that's what you're going for, then you can totally miss all this other fucking shit because you locked in on that one thing.
Love
it. And I think that's where the magic sauce is that for true missable content, that you have to have that organic pull. The game has to organically pull you towards the next thing, while also having other options available, but not telling you.
Personally, what I like about that idea is that it's missable content that you don't know you miss.
And that's the Mentos to this Diet Coke here is then the social interaction with other people that have played
the water cooler experience.
Well, I would have missed the Hive completely in Hollow Knight had it not again been for you, Raul, because I didn't even know that area existed. And I had no clue how to get in.
And my first time through that, I did not get to the Hive.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, another perfect example of a whole area, whole section that was in that that you didn't need to go to. You absolutely did not have to go to.
Mm-hmm.
It was not, the most it would do is affect whether or not you had all the charms. You could totally bypass it, but it was there because you'd go by it in your journey, and you'd hear the hum of the bees and the hive working, but it was just, it could be easily like, oh, but I'm going here, and then you'd forget about it because it was just something in passing. And that was a perfect
There's a real
example.
subtle thread.
Yeah. And I had no clue how to get in there. It was like, something's here, but how do I get in? I couldn't figure it out, so I just bypassed it for thinking, oh, it's something I'll need later.
Right.
And then you forget about it because you're so busy going, like you said, the organic stuff.
I think you just made me realize something. I think the other part that's not necessary but important to making missable content meaningful is that it has to have a meaningful reward. Like, you can have a whole swath of, a world that you can miss, but if there's nothing rewarding in there, you can go detour through it, but then it's just another route versus giving you something for the effort, for rewarding you for having found it.
Yeah.
And that's the other part that makes it stick mentally and creates that magic, because, it then links back to that water cooler Mentos that says, your buddy just told you, I found the fucking hive in Hollow Knight, and there was this awesome fucking charm down there, and now you're like, oh, fuck, now I have a reason to go other than just it exists and I want to see it, which, granted, it's pretty and it's cool, but still, there's a thing to get.
And it's valuable.
Right. It has to have value.
Yeah. Again, not needed, but it adds to your collection. It enhances your character.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, but like I said, this has just been a thing that's been in my head for a very long time, and I've been trying to figure out how to pull it together as a cohesive topic, and I don't know that I quite did that as well as I normally do. But I feel like we've almost detoured into a couple of little subtopics here that just dovetailed really well. And I don't know, is there anybody have anything you want to add on to the pile here?
Not really, but the one thing I want to say is I think that this is definitely going to need to be revisited with some of the other gang also.
Yeah.
I would love to hear what Wes, Eddie, okay, I will sit over here, Zoe and other people want to think about that. I think we could revisit this topic every 6 months, and it would just keep going.
Actually, you mentioning Zoe has me think, because one of the ones that I know Zoe's played but not finished, like you, is Breath of the Wild. I think a great example of missable content is Evertide Island in Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah.
That is such a
yeah, I totally
completely
did that.
fucking missable.
Yeah.
But
A
it
heck
gives
of
you
a
a
fun
thread,
time.
and you can see it in the distance.
Yep.
It doesn't present itself as being super important. But if you go there and you hammer through it, the reward is at the end of it.
Yeah.
And it pulls that together so well, and that's one of those where, the discourse surrounding that game, you'd hear a few people go, did you check out Evertide Island yet? And you'd see in the comments, no, what the fuck's that?
Right.
And that's the Mentos and the Diet Coke.
Yep.
For real.
Like, by themselves, separate, those two things are nice, but you introduce one into the other, and then it explodes in your head, and you go, shit, it's bigger than I realized. So, which is a really cool moment for for anybody that likes to, that takes joy in exploring their games, to know that, I thought I've explored, and then suddenly talking to somebody made the game bigger to you. So, and I love that magic. So, but yeah, I'm good to wrap here if anybody else is, unless anybody else wants to chuck in. All right. Well, in that case, let's call it. I want to say thank you to my friends for coming and hanging out with me this week. Thank you to everybody that tuned in and listened. Thank you to our awesome sponsor, Imaginary Authors. Your final reminder for the day: subscribe, share, Discord link. Come talk to us. If you've got a missable content magic moment that we haven't talked about here, which I'm sure there are fucking gobs of, come tell us about it. I want to hear about it, because there's a good chance that it's something I've played and I've missed, and I would love to have a reason to go back to it. So, yeah, that's it. Say goodnight, everybody.
Night.
Bye.
You've been tuned to the World 1-1 podcast, powered by the World 1-1 Podcast Network. Press start to engage your mind. Peace.